Hi, this is Doug, and I'm just going to go through and show you some of the things that I do in Surface on my Surface Pro. And right now, what you're looking at here is OneNote. This is the full application version of OneNote. In fact, I can bring this down so you can get kind of a sense of it. So this is the there's two things of OneNote. One is the desktop app, which I'm using here, and the other one, of course, is the little app in the App Store, the Metro app, the modern app, if you will. But this is what I use a lot, and you can see I'm just doing screencast recording right here. So this is the Surface Pro. This is OneNote on it, and I just pull OneNote down. Some other programs that I use a lot is this one that Josh McGee pointed us to, or maybe it was Susan Hanifold, but the emulator for the TI-84 Plus. This works well on it, and I can pull that over into the screen anytime I want. And another thing that I use, and I'll talk about briefly, is GeoGebra. I use this in my classroom often. So what'll typically happen in the classroom, so you just kind of get an idea. You're looking at just a small portion of my screen right now. There's more screen that you don't see, and that's how I'm able to pull things off on. But let me maximize this app again. So here we are. And if I'm recording a session like this is a pretty typical setup for me. I've got it set up so that I can quickly bring in other apps and talk about things. So let's just talk about a function. So I'm going to write a function down. And I had one earlier, but let me write this function. So I'll say my function is f of x equals 2x to the second power plus 3x and then minus, I'll subtract 4. Minus 4. So there's a function. Now I just wrote that in OneNote using my beautiful pen. Clearly that's one of the best things about the Surface Pro line is their digitizers. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select all of that. So just selecting it, and then if I touch with my finger on the cross arrow there, I can hit this little drop down arrow and I can say turn that ink into math. So it looks at it, and you can see it's flawlessly changed f of x equals 2x squared plus 3x minus 4. So if I click Insert, it'll replace that with that is a typeset equation. Now that's a little small, so I might if I press and hold, let me actually bring this down so you can see it happen. There's another expression I was going to work with, but I don't want this one now. So I'm just going to press and hold, and then it pops this up, and then I can just hit the drop down arrow and pick a larger font size if I want. So I might have this, kind of all set up before my class is even there. I want to talk about functions and how you evaluate a function for a particular value of x, something. So it's sitting there. Well, I might have the question like, hey, what is this function produce if I give it a value, let's say if x is 2. So if x equals 2, what is this function? And of course, the function, has all of these, and we can look at just one at a time, or we can look at all of them. But I could say, hey, x equals, and I'm going to look at the case when x is the number 2. And I can plug that number 2 into each of my x's. And I might even show this right below this, right? It's 2. I'm going to replace the x with a 2. So 2 times 2 squared. Because I'm curious what this function produces, what its output is when x is 2. And I'll come over here and I'll say 3 times, again, x is 2. And then minus 4. So if I look at this, I've got 2 times 2 squared, so that's 2 times 4, so I've got an 8, plus 3 times 2 is 6, and then minus a 4. So I'm looking at that as 8 plus 2, right? 6 minus 4 is 2, so 8 plus 2 is 10. So when x is 2, this function produces an output of 10. That's what the whole function is. At that point now, I might grab my pen and erase these things, and just leave it here for a minute. So a couple ways I can also look at this. Of course, I just did the arithmetic, but I can talk about looking at a function like this on your calculator. So I can bring the TI-83 in here. There it is. And I could say, well, let's go ahead and hit y equals and enter that function. So I'm going to say it's 2 times x squared. So 2 times x to the second power plus 3x and then minus a 4. So there's that function. And I'm going to now jump to actually the table view. So I'm going to go ahead and hit second and look at the table. And when I look at the table, sure enough, I can see when x is 2, it produced an output value of 10. So that's another thing that I like to be able to do. My students have these calculators, and I think, you know, when I'm talking about least squares regression, when I'm anything that's kind of complex on the calculator, it's really nice to pull it up and show that device to the class so they can see exactly what you're talking about and watch you use it. So let me pull the calculator off screen. And another thing I want to just demonstrate is GeoGebra. So on my Surface, by the way, the fonts you're going to find when you start it are super, super small. It's hard to see any of these words. But if you hit View and go down to, actually it's Edit, is it Edit? No, it's Options. Options and Font Size. You can pick a much larger font size. Right now I'm using 28, but probably even 32 would be good. And then if you want to not have to do that anytime, once you've got the font size all set up the way you like it, if you hit Options and come down to Save Settings, the next time you launch GeoGebra, you'll see these fonts are all exactly the same. So let's see what it looks like to enter this particular function in GeoGebra. So GeoGebra has an on-screen keyboard, so I'm going to go ahead and hit View, and I'm going to pull that up. View, Keyboard. And with the keyboard up, I could use the Windows keyboard. I could actually use my physical keyboard too, but I like this on-screen keyboard when I'm doing demonstrations with the class. So I'm going to enter this function that we had above. You can see it's still right up there on the screen. But to enter that in GeoGebra, it's just going to be 2, and then you don't have to hit times, just 2x, and then to the second power. And I think I can actually just hit that little 2 right there. But I could also do raised to the power of this caret. But that's 2x squared plus 3x. So plus 3, oops, I missed the plus. Plus 3x, and then finally minus 4. And as soon as I press enter, I'm going to go ahead and close the on-screen keyboard. You can see this function is graphed now, so I see lots of values of the function. This particular tool, Move Graphics View, is really handy in a class. If I select that, now with that tool selected, I can just click and move anywhere around on the graph window. And also I can use 2 fingers. It'll understand those gestures, so I can zoom in by moving my fingers apart, or I can pinch and zoom out. And also you can actually change the scales of the axes independently, right? So I can grab my x-axis if I want, and I can stretch it or contract it. Sometimes if you get a really funky, x, y, you just want to go back to normal, you can just hold in a blank spot. And I don't know if, yeah, you can see this. It says x-axis, y-axis. So if I click that, I could just come right back up to this 1 to 1. So now it's the same. They're equal, right? X and y are equal to each other. But if I want to see this, the one value I know is that when I plug in 2, I should get 10. So I could grab this and move it around. Here's 2, and this 10 right there should be on it. And it really does look like, this is the 2 line, and you can see that it's totally going right through that spot there. Another thing, let me actually grab this and bring this scale down and move it around over to here. Another thing you can do is you can actually just plot a point. So let me bring the on-screen keyboard back up and just plot the point 2, 10. And with that plotted, I can see point A is at 210, and I see that it totally is on that particular value. That's great. And another thing, I could go on and on. Another thing you could do is you could just grab a point, and you can ask it to plot a point on there. Whoops. Now that point is not on the curve, is it? Let me make a point that's actually on the curve. So you hold it, and you got to really be careful to tap on the function. That point C now is constrained by the function. It will only it will only go to points that are on the function. You can see right there. Actually, should snap at that integer value, but it didn't actually quite do it. And I don't know if there's other options that I haven't played with for a while. Rounding, view. Anyways, so those are kind of some of the big tools that I use. Again, it's OneNote. I use the TI-84 Plus, and I definitely use GeoGebra a lot in my classroom. I use those live with students, and I also use them just kind of as an addition to my whiteboard, because anytime I need to, I can just start writing, and that shows up there. Obviously, there's all kinds of pen settings here. So right now, you're just looking at one particular pen. But if I wanted to, I could grab and make this pen thicker and make it purple. So how can I upload? Hello. And there's some actually pretty good. There's some pressure sensitivity. So if I write really lightly, and then as I press down more, you can see that ink get much thinner. Really super cool. And then these are projected up to my projector in my classroom, sent to my projector. I'm using in my classroom mirror casting, and the box that I'm mirror casting with is the Netgear push to TV. I think 3000 Netgear push to TV. And it's really intuitive to start that session up, and I've certainly with the Surface Pro 1 I had problems with it. It would drop out a lot, but with the Pro 2 I find once I have a connection it stays connected, so it's just a great extension. Tons more things I could talk about, tons more things I could show you. I haven't talked about Microsoft Mix at all. I really encourage you to go to mix.office.com and look at some of their examples, because that's really intuitive. If you've got some PowerPoint slides already, it's a really good way to turn those PowerPoint slides into interactive content that can be hosted for free with Microsoft, or you could, if you choose to, you could publish it to YouTube. And there's advantages to both of those, but super great products. Anyways, I hope this was helpful, and I'm going to stop now.